All right, everybody. It's the final day of the MGI International Classics 2026. Josh and I with you as we have been the past 3 days to watch the final 6 rounds and the exciting conclusion.
And we have a banger of a matchup, 6 games left. In 7 hours, we will have crowned the new MGI International Scrabble Classics champion.
But here we go. Day 4 underway. This is where we are going to see who is the champion this year over the next few days. Games, I should say. Lewis going first. Only one vowel, Josh.
Yeah, otherwise, some very good tiles here for Lewis. I think a lot of things could be reasonable here. I don't see a reasonable 5-letter word, but a 4-letter word, a reasonable pard. And we could also see an exchange of a D and a P, D, a P, and an N. I personally like to exchange in positions like these, but I think with the P and the D, scoring 14 with pard, keeping NST is pretty good. What about you?
Yeah. Playing feels like you can get away with doing here. If you were to exchange, what leave would you keep? Probably ARST. That's probably got the nicest synergy without being too consonant heavy. And you can make plays that get really close to that. You can make plays leaving RST that score 14 points. That seems worth it. Lewis going to go ahead and play Pant, leaving DRS. I wonder, this taking a few more hooks as well. Actually, Pand does take surprisingly many hooks too. But I don't know. I feel like I would rather have RST in a vacuum, Josh.
Yeah, agree. DRS is pretty strong, and I kind of like it more than NST in some circumstances. And oh my goodness, that's not a good draw. But this seems pretty good. I'm a little worried about the hooks. I agree. And Peter has 3 of those O's that go onto Pant, but not really anything to do here. Maybe he's going to exchange 3.
Yeah. Could we see just a play of the two of the 3 O's as well? Is orate a good enough leave where you would be willing to just play ooh somewhere on this board? Perhaps exchanging also definitely reasonable here. The interesting thing is you've got the 3 O's and panto is a word, but doesn't feel like there's anything productive to play with that here. So almost taunting Peter with the rack to start, but very much a tale of 2 racks to start this game. He is going to go ahead and exchange 3 O's, which is 100% defensible. And now Lewis is stuck playing. I guess you're going to play draft here, which seems like a reasonable way to dump some consonants and get another S hook on the board.
Yeah, draft seems clear here. We're not saying the animal giraffe, but DRAFF is a word. Play that through the A in Pant, but actually we're seeing a very quick exchange, keeping that same leave. Probably if Lewis was sure of the word draft, he would have played it there, as long as he saw it. But this is also very defensible.
Yeah. Feels just worth it. Again, keeping the 3 consonants isn't ideal, but for a certain number of points, always that trade-off. And much better tiles here for Lewis, as at least rotundas through the N of Pant, but that does feel like it's hard to imagine not seeing that get blocked by parallel plays with that W. The 2 Ws, in fact. Wow, some really weird draws to start this game off.
Indeed, and I think the word is not in question what word Peter's going to play, but wa, do you play it overlapping the P and the A? Or do you really like your alter leave and you just want to score 9 points, play wa, set up the L? WAWL is valid. Or you play wall immediately for 10, but then again, you're left hookless on this board. I think wall makes the most sense. You're scoring a lot more in its early days. No need to fish too hard. think this makes a lot of sense.
I gotta
Also,
see.
wall for 9 would set up an E, which might be a little too dangerous.
So there we go. That is a very standard looking play. Lewis seeing rotundas as we fully expect him to do. Definitely want to emphasize at the level both of these two players are at, seeing a missed bingo or bonus would be much, much rarer than usual. These guys are very solid on their words, and we saw it yesterday and with both of them making some tough finds under pressure. In particular, Peter drawing Xylenol out of the bag to start a game and finding it within seconds. Very impressive. Took a minute after that to confirm his instinct. Oh God, is this a word? Which makes total sense, Josh. With a word that improbable, you're not likely to see it that much over the board. So you have to rely on your studies and your preparation to be able to do that.
Yeah. So rotundas was the only playable bonus here for Lewis, but he's still in a good position. He's probably looking to overlap, and I really don't see a way of getting rid of the U that easily. I guess you could play do a no, you can't even do that. So Oda, I think, is a pretty obvious choice, but on this side,
Got
scoring
it
even
on.
more.
Yeah, both
And I think,
sides.
yeah, I think you want to take the points here.
Yeah, there's no reason to panic. Yes, the U you'd love to get rid of, but the RSTU leave is still going to get you a bingo a lot of the time on your next play, probably more often than you might expect, given how much we dump on the U as this terrible tile. It's bad. It's definitely not good, but it's mostly bad because of its awful synergy with a bunch of other letters, including other U's, the V, and the W, of which there are two on the board already this early point in the game. So the U just got a lot better to keep in theory because the both of the W's were just played. So that horrible WU combination we complain about so much is no longer possible.
And crucially, you take the points here. Oda on the right scores 3 more, but if Lewis somehow decides to play Oda on the left, maybe wanting to set up his S a little bit better, that would block Peter's bingo that he has probably seen already of Brittler
Ooh.
through the T of Pant. But it makes no sense to block that here. And actually, we're seeing Udo Lewis a little bit fishier than expected early on in this game. I think this is a little bit too many points to give up, but solid play.
Yeah, as with anything in Scrabble, there are trade-offs. Our computer engine tells us basically, the point values, it helps us calibrate more finely what point value is enough to make a certain sacrifice or not. In this case, Udo, many fewer points than Oda in either of the two spots, but getting rid of the U is very valuable. So, is it the best play according to the computer engine? No, but it definitely has some advantages over the best play. And you can see Lewis drawing a U. So, he's probably thrilled right now that he's gotten rid of his previous U. So, he's not saddled with UU. And now he's going to be bingoing for a huge score, Josh. So, even the quote unquote suboptimal plays will sometimes have a lot going for them in other ways.
Indeed. And that R and Brittler, that's the best spot on the board. Lewis locked in. He sees curators. That's a nice 90 points to take a 31-point lead. But there's the first blank on Peter's redraw. Very interesting stuff so far.
So Riddler for a solid score, 64. Curators coming back 490, spanning the two double word scores. So Lewis making out much better on that exchange. As you say, Josh, that first blank, important pick for Peter. But brittler, an adjective, curators is impossible to overlap on this side and nearly impossible on this one. Not a good board for bingoing at all. And it's easily going to be possible here for Peter that he simply does not have a bingo yet. Going to have to waste a turn trying to balance his rack, undouble the eyes, and open some space for himself.
Yeah, do you think Brittlers is gonna come into play here? Whether one of the players thinks it's valid, both of them doubt it. It's Brittler definitely doesn't sound like a noun to me.
Yeah, I doubt it. There are some weird examples of that. For example, I think steepers is a valid word, and I think fleeters might also. Or am I misremembering that? I just had a memory of that being good, but let me just make sure I'm not misinforming everybody. Yeah, in the CSW lexicon that we're using here, fleeters is valid, which is a very silly looking word, but brittlers not among those strange inflections. So that really keeps things nice and closed. Worth noting too, Peter had the option to play brittler one square over with those two T's. I wonder in this particular case, that would have made a big difference denying the double double through that R. There would have been a B in that spot. If you just
Mhm.
imagine this entire word shifted over, is there any merit to that placement?
Yeah, I think so. Normally, with the board texture as it was, you want to play a little bit off to the left to not open as much space on the right. But in this particular instance, throwing that R in the double double lane, I'm sure Peter was ready to play Brittler in this position before Udo came down. But now that Udo is on the board, there's no real threat of a double double this way with that E that would have been right there. So I think this was potentially a very small detail that Peter missed in the position, and he did allow a double double instead. And if you're in his position, how long do you look for bingos here, Will?
I would say not as long as usual because of how closed down the board is, but I would say my eye is drawn to this spot. I have the G to overlap here. I guess maybe you don't have enough overlaps of WO where you can then say there just can't be anything here. Then you move on to the C and think to yourself, man, if there was something there, I would see it. And then finally, maybe most flexible of all, the R, thinking about that for a bit. Those, as soon as you quickly sort of get that instinct that if there was something here, I would probably see it. Think you can move on, not too much time, but it's way easier said than done. Want to make sure you don't miss a bingo on the stream. You want to make sure that you don't miss a bingo in this critical game on the final day. There's a lot of pressure mounting, and those misses of those bingos can really hurt. Want to avoid it whenever possible. We're going to see just bug here. Digit available to that T could have been tempting as well, but bug the play.
Yeah, this seems like a bit of a miss. Digit, of course, keeping the U, we're talking about how the U is bad, but not as bad as you might think. With a blank, I feel like it's not a big deal. Blocking that triple and being behind feels like Peter thinking Brittlers is good. I don't understand keeping the two eyes here, and this is going to hurt a lot. Shifty coming down, had that T been utilized, Lewis's options not so good. And wow, a third eye drawn, Shifty for 57 coming down. But is there a
Yeah,
bingo here?
I
Iridizes?
iridizes. Yeah, so this is really helpful word to know in that worldwide lexicon. Iridizes, if we just show Peter's POV, I'm very confident that with those three eyes, he's going to be thinking about this. You see it on the board there, 80 points to the triple. That's going to bail him out of this three eye rack. But it is a huge gap if he somehow does not think of this, which would be very surprising. His next best plays are so much weaker. We're literally talking about Ridic for 18 points being the potential next best option compared to Iridizes for 80, the lone bingo here to be expected with 3 eyes on the rack.
Yeah, and these triple I words come up so seldom just because we're not keeping duplicate eyes much on our racks. We're really fearful of that duplicated combination. So I'm not surprised that Peter hasn't come up with it, but he really needs to. In this position, like you said, there's such a difference between the bingo and the next best play. And being down 74 already so early, I'm sure that play of Shifty hit like a truck, but that S, you really need to be thinking, is there possibly a bingo here? I have a blank. And indeed, Iridizes is playable. And there it looks like, thinking about it, he's made a little bit of a face like, oh, I guess I have this. Okay, good.
Yeah, he gets there. I fully expected that would happen. We've seen immaculate word knowledge from Peter Andronowski in part. Why is he 21 and 5 plus 2,000? He's got fantastic word knowledge, though I would call out so does Lewis, so do a lot of the players in this field. But that is definitely a requirement to be having such a great result, and we've seen it very consistently from Peter.
Definitely. So, taking a 6-point lead. I like to see it. Competitive game so far in this round 27 out of 32 game. Lewis to respond with ABEEGNO. Not so great, not so bad. I'm trying to think about an overlap of Udo, and Be Gone comes to mind. Overlaps the whole way, doesn't really open anything new. Game is tied at this score, so just going for a score looks pretty good. I guess the one issue with the play of Be Gone, that there's a possible high scoring re-overlap if an S or an H has been drawn, but I think Be Gone the play here will.
Yeah, it looks to be a pretty big gap in valuation between that and any other play. And there you can see Lewis, solid as ever, has identified it as an overlap on the right side of Udo. It just scores. It's the highest scoring play. Also gets rid of 6 of those letters, which, while you do have balance, relative balance between the 3 consonants and 4 vowels, is a little vowel heavy, and the BG combination is not ideal. Circling the E of Brittler though, Josh. Oh
This
man.
is the only E that's been played so far. 45 tiles gone. So that's the biggest deal here. The reason that play of Began, for example, isn't nearly as good the same spot is because it keeps an E, which normally is great, but with so many E's left to draw, there's really no need here. A little vowel heavy as well. The whole bag, 25 vowels, 30 consonants. That's a few more vowels than normal. So Egon, the best play, and Lewis is going to make it. Very nice.
Does create an H hook, but it doesn't seem very easy for Peter to use it for that good of plays alongside Begone. Would have been great if he had another consonant that meshed a little bit better with the H, such as the T, something like that, right? You could easily see huge plays coming down to counter. Don't think you would use your last S on this particular spot. But yeah, no such consonant on the rack for Peter, which is going to make it a little more difficult for him to use that spot.
Yeah, so you could play EH or HE with UG, but the HE actually goes a little bit better right here, making heh or 31, which, yes, you're keeping a V, but 31 points is a decent amount on this board, and the R of Iridizes is going to allow that leave of AEILV to potentially get its own wings and bingo some of the time.
I think
I'm
also
not
the B is sneakily good with
true.
those tiles. In fact, you can draw a lot of bingos holding alive with an open B.
That's very true. Enviable, inviable, unviable, evadable, lots of stuff livable. So many things possible through that beat that might actually be better. Very good to notice that able combination on the rack. So I think HEH the play here. A little bit weird to keep a V at this stage of the game, but sometimes you have good letters to support it. It's really not that bad of a tile.
My engine also suggesting that playing HAH could have some merit, but we are going to see Peter's eye drawn to the UG spot, which makes total sense. That is where our eye was drawn after Begone was played. It would take a little bit of creative thinking to even start looking over here. And that is going to be the play. So those same letters play for 3 more points across the board right here. But this also a very solid play, one of the best available.
Yeah, I would say if there were more S's unseen, I'd be more concerned with the play like Cots or Zits or something with the J as well. All those high scoring tiles still unseen. But I don't think sacrificing 3 points to block the spot is sound. It's just 3 points though. So really not a huge deal either way. And wow, a blank draw just like that. And Peter is primed to bingo again.
Yeah, he's in good shape here. Good tiles. Again, the board is not that easy to work with, but he should definitely have some stuff. I mean, my eye immediately went to relative here, so he's got that from the R. Not going to be blocked by Lewis's what feels like clear optimal play of Isoli. Nice work by him. But we'll see what Peter comes up with. There are actually better plays than that available here, and it'll be interesting to see if Peter can spot those tiny little differences, make a big impact.
Yeah, so Isley can't feel great to make that play. It's a nice 28 points and a good leave, but floating that Y out there with so many high point tiles available, I think Lewis pretty much knows, starting the position down 1 point, pretty much knows that he is in a slightly worse position, but maybe not expecting a bingo here. So relative coming down, but receival that we're looking at for 86 was available. A little bit of a hasty decision by Peter, but you see the time clock, not really that much time left for the rest of the game. So it makes sense to play quickly and direct your search. But this is a lot of points on the table.
Yeah, 12 additional points because you would be slotting the V in that critical spot there. But still, relative, the second best play available has some merits, of course, denying 4 tile overlaps on top, whereas Receival would let you play 4 tile plays on top. But of course, the E in this spot instead of the L with Receival makes it a little bit easier to place a high scoring consonant here. And we could easily see Lewis do exactly that. He's already thinking about playing Moo. This will leave him very nicely balanced tiles here, including the R, notably, which if he's able to draw bingo, starting with that letter, and be in good shape still.
And what a great draw from Peter. Super balanced with that J. So definitely Peter in the driver's seat here. And the unseen letter is not so bad either. There is a Q. That's the biggest deal here, but only one I left. So we're not going to see any eye problems for either of the players for the rest of the game. And yeah, I think Moo makes the most sense. You can't leave that spot open at this score line. And unless there was some other viable option, this is the best score and the best leave. So makes a lot of sense for Lewis.
Only 20 points down, despite having been out bingoed 3-1 in this game. So curators for Lewis. The other three bingos, Brittler, Iridizes, and Relative, all in Peter's column, but he's still pretty close. Peter's got that J, though, and that is going to hit pretty hard in this spot. He's got a nice spot to dump it, and he's going to even keep a nicely balanced leave while he does so. It looks like he's going to waste no time with that clock starting to get a little low, as you mentioned, Josh.
Yeah, good time usage for sure. I was thinking of Jap on the bottom left, but this is even better to not open that dangerous E hook and score a little bit more. So definitely good timing and good position for Peter Andronowski here. But Remanet is the draw for Lewis,
Oh,
and that will fit with Doer at the very least. Uh, he's probably going to see that very quickly, but just want to think, maybe is there something using the H of Shifty? There's somewhere else to bingo on the board, but very interesting stuff. And seeing that Peter hasn't drawn the Z, I think Lewis has very decent chances to stay in this.
wow. This is a huge draw. This is exactly what Lewis needed. You're right that there is serious risk with this play, but there is no other option, right? You've got the one spot to play your bingo right here, placing an A in this scary, scary spot. As Josh says, Zed would hit like a truck here. It's not on Peter's rack. Peter is very likely to block it himself, probably with a C play like Karn or something of the like.
But
And if
then,
Lewis, yeah, if Lewis draws well, Lewis draws the Z, we could be in for an exciting end.
then there's the X too. The E would go down,
Oh,
creating a big X spot. So lots of things can happen here. Lewis just making sure Earthmen, the word through the H, making sure there's nothing else, and it's going to come down. And the next draw is going to be crucial. Crucial, crucial, crucial. There's a Q out, there's a Z out, there's an X out. Lots of things to think about, but I think for Lewis, all you're thinking about here is, where do I bingo? And I think it's going to come down within a few seconds here.
yeah, he's clearly spotted it. Got the one place for it. This is exactly what he was hoping for. Playing Moo, leaving a nice balanced bingo leave with an R in it. You're going to hit a lot of words like this, and he's managed to do that at just the right time. So, as Josh says, so much is going to depend on that draw after this. Is he going to get the valuable Z, the similarly valuable X, or the scary Q, which could be useful, but also could be an albatross that ruins his comeback hopes in the game?
We'll see. We'll have to wait and find out. That's why it's so exciting to watch these games live. So many close games. And lots can happen still with around 23 tiles unseen. That means 16 left in the bag. Things are getting very, very tight. 322 for Peter, 328 for Lewis. And Peter probably gonna quickly play through that A. I mean, there's not really much else to think about other than, well, I can't deal with everything here. I might as well use the triple, take the lead, leave well. Maybe I can bingo a fourth time in this game, which would be really incredible. And the first two tiles, QV, that is not a great draw for Lewis Mackay, but definitely a possibility given the unseen tiles. So Peter back in the driver's seat, I think, from our perspective. And he's looking at card. I wonder
Yeah.
if you want to get rid of one of those ends, though.
Yeah. This is a terrible draw for Lewis, as you suggest. But this part of the game is where you really need to be using your unseen tiles as an important clue of what to play. And one thing that you can note from this unseen pool, there are no R's in it. So this is the last R. So if Peter is able to play something like CANN instead, there is another N lurking, and he's leaving both of them. I wonder what he has in mind here. Why card over Karn? Obviously, the points, you get a couple extra points, but um, Peter not optimizing his leave here. Potentially, he has a reason for doing this that we're not seeing just yet, but I think he missed an opportunity for some balance.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is maybe an instance of not really thinking hard enough about the possibilities and wanting to go for the maximum score. Definitely worth sacrificing 3 points to not keep two ends. Not a huge deal, but those small details can sometimes really matter. And what a draw! Drawing the Z, the best tile left in the pool other than that S. Maybe even better than the S, depending on what happens. But anyways, 13 tiles in the bag. Lewis definitely at a disadvantage here. I find it hard to figure out what to do. I guess you just drop the Q. Will, what is going on here? I feel like just QI is what you do.
Yeah, just want to call out a really nice observation from the chat that maybe the reason he kept ENON is to draw the X and hit the massive xenon in this spot, which is a really cool idea. I think in practice, the board after card is really conducive to Lewis playing in this spot one way or another. Either he'll have the X already and he's got a good chance to just play Rex, or if he doesn't have it, there's other stuff he can have, such as the F that might play really productively in this spot for big, big scores. So I don't think that plan actually works out enough, but it is an interesting one. And I like the idea from Peter, like the creativity going for that X. But to your point of what you actually do here, if you're Lewis, that Q is going to be really tough to use long term. There is a U lurking that maybe you can luck into drawing, but I would also be worried about leaving this spot open and leaving the X open. There could be an argument to be made for just playing FORE right here, keeping an absolutely
But
atrocious leave, but at least
Will,
you're.
that takes an X.
Oh, yeah, good point. I didn't think about
Oh
that.
man, that's crazy. The best way Lewis has of trying to block that spot sets up a 56 point X bomb.
Fair
But
enough. Yeah.
4 is
Okay.
definitely still a reasonable play. I feel like the X is so huge in this position that both players kind of want to bank on drawing it. Oh my god. Yeah, this is very tense, and I think Lewis certainly not in a good position here. Do you play off your Q, or do you hope for something better? I just, even with a U, where is the Q going? It just doesn't feel great.
Yeah, agreed. I guess my issue with playing the queue now is that your leave is FVK and all this other stuff. So if you're gonna keep a terrible leave, no matter what you do, you might as well, do something to address this area of the board. And I think it is worth noting that even though 4 in this spot does nothing to block the X, now, if you're Lewis, you've drawn almost all of the junk out of the bag, and you may be able to save yourself from getting bingoed on to this D a lot of the time with what is otherwise actually a pretty bingo prone pool. So not only do you have to worry about the X and the Z in various spots, certainly the X maybe something you can't do anything about. Definitely can do something about bingos to the D that instantly end the game if you play there, as opposed to playing your Q here. That being said, I would be sorely tempted to just play the Q here because the future for it is so dim.
It's, yeah, it's such a bad board for a Q, but it's also just a bad board for all this junk. So Lewis is gonna play Fed. This makes sense. My engine's suggesting potentially to play Fiat in that same spot, setting up a huge S hook and a huge triple, but you have the K to potentially get a huge score there. But man, this is a really complicated stuff. Fed looks like a very solid idea. Unfortunately, you're getting hit on the triple a lot, and I think Peter's just going to play ooze here.
Yeah. Um, get in the play correctly. Yeah, Ooze looks really good. Um, some support there for the Q in the form of that I, but I'm not sure it's going to be enough. This sort of draw, obviously, now it feels like in hindsight, Fiat would have been brilliant because it would have denied this particular. Oh, would it have? No, it wouldn't have.
No, no. Yes, ooh still comes down.
Still coming down. Yeah, so there's no dodging ooze for a great, great score. So that is a huge blow for Peter, and he even keeps NEN. Maybe sometimes he draws the vowel support to play a bingo that finishes this off, but either way, his lead is now pretty scary. That Q on Lewis's rack.
Yeah, so Lewis down 40, and he has a Q and he has a V. This is looking really, really dim in this position. Is there even something you can draw if you play QI? I don't see it. You can now play QI up top and maybe hope for the U, but Peter's just drawn that and he's drawn the X, and that is pretty much so hard to come back from, I think.
Yeah. Not sure what you're hoping for. I guess um are you possibly fishing for equative at this point? Are things so dire that you want to play KO somewhere or some combination of these letters that gives you an outside chance of drawing UE? Not impossible. It is in this particular case, as Peter has all of the relevant tiles that Lewis would be looking for, but that could be as reasonable of a plan as you're going to come up with here. Not that many tiles in the bag. A way to fish for that would just be to play Koa, um, getting rid of these tiles and praying for UE to find its way onto your rack. Is that the best you can muster for a play here, Josh? For a plan here, Josh?
I don't know. It's you can draw quiz for 44 if you keep the Q and draw the U. Equative would be ridiculous as well. But if you play QI, what do you draw? It looks like Keto coming down, which is Short Sim's preferred choice here. It's a nice 31 points, keeping things close. But
You still can
Lewis is
draw
not gonna.
equative here too. You just have to draw the
Yeah,
T as well. So
he's not. He's not going to. Gonna get some pretty bad news here, and unless Peter makes some sort of blunder, I mean, I cannot see Lewis winning this game, even though he's just drawn decently well. There's 3 tiles in the bag. Guess Peter's gonna want to keep the U for the Q because there really is only one spot for it to the I and Shifty. So that's the one saving grace, is that with the fog of war, Peter doesn't know whether Lewis has the Q or not, and gonna have to make sure he knows what to do when he draws it. So we'll see what he does. This is a very complicated position for Peter, only being up 9 points. But what we do know is that Lewis is struggling massively here with this QV combination.
yeah, just that brutal draw after Reminette. He could have drawn some great stuff there, but it escaped him at the critical moment. And Peter playing great again. Both players very crisp play throughout. Only tiny nuances here and there that we would change from our easy position up here in the booth. Much tougher to be out there over the board.
Yeah. Crazy game to start, honestly. Hard to say what was the biggest swing other than that post Reminette draw for Peter. But I guess Lewis hoping that, oh wow, he's looking at this thinking in the end game he can play vintage to the E and set up a second spot for the Q if the bag gets emptied. That's pretty sly, but probably won't be enough no matter what. But maybe, I don't know. I feel like if you're Lewis, you just hope that Peter leaves the tile in the bag, get to play QI, and then something good happens. You draw the E for, but there's no E to draw anymore from Peter's perspective, but from Lewis's
Yeah,
perspective, maybe
could be.
you draw the E for negative or vintaged. Um,
Nice. Yeah, the Q fish. If Peter does not empty the bag, Lewis is going to have some hopes. Form of flopping down the Q, drawing the E, and as Josh says, you've got bingos in 2 different spots, We know that's not possible to draw, but from his POV, he's probably hoping, praying, give me a chance to play my cue and fish for those unblockable bingos. Um, but it's not to be in this one.
But honestly, from Peter's perspective, I mean, it's such a tale of lack of information, which is the name of the game in Scrabble. This position is actually very uncomfortable. If you're Peter, you probably feel like you are likely to win, but it's so hard to come up with a plan that basically works with whatever you draw. You can't really score with the X. You can't score with your other tiles. They're pretty ugly. You could try to not empty the bag, but then you get hit with a high scoring play and maybe your tiles are still pretty bad. So I feel like Hex is maybe the first thing that would come to mind for 29, leaving one in the bag and going up 30, but you could certainly lose after that. First, if you draw the Q, I mean, you will have spots for it. But actually, even if you
It's
draw the Q after Hex,
I'm looking at that and it's not so
what?
easy.
You only have the one spot with QI.
Even the
That's
U
crazy.
does not. I'm looking at the board and thinking, all right, so if you draw the Q and you play Hex keeping the U, what more do you have available than just this, depending on what your other tile is? If you draw the A as well, you're going to be fine. And in fact, there are a bunch of A's to draw, and your likelihood of drawing one is quite high. But if you somehow don't, U sticks could still be possible here, despite you having a U on your rack. Would be insane. 'Cause it looks like it's
Yeah.
just Shuk and Chi, Josh.
Yeah, and the A, I mean, there are two A's and an S in the bag, which is kind of brutal. Like Lewis had drawn an S, it would have been in much better shape. But yeah, with AAS in the bag, I mean, if you knew that was in the bag, you'd be home free for sure. You're Peter, but he's got 4 minutes and a very complicated pre-end game position on his hands, and you don't want to screw up at this stage of the game. And it's very easy to screw up. Maybe thinking about Ben up top, making ETHE and NO. Simulation liking playing emptying the bag with BENNE, which seems really ridiculous. Putting the E right there, leaving 6 tiles for the end game, but it scores very well and keeps the X. This is a really tough position. Little does Peter know he's probably fine, but he needs to not suffer too much on the clock, and he needs to make a decent play here, because if he doesn't empty the bag, Lewis plays QI, draws navigate. It's going to be really hard to navigate position, the end game position for Peter, having to block that E bottom right of the board and then go out next turn.
Yeah, navigate still possible in this particular scenario for sure. With all the A's, we know that the tile bag actually consists of
Yes.
AAS. Very nice looking bag. So from Peter's POV, he could have navigate now. He could have staving now. It could be excruciating to think, God, do I somehow need to play something long from this R to try to block staving and navigate? But that, of course, leaves him super vulnerable to the Q draw and then maybe even outs in two, depending on. Oh, wow. Trank. I didn't even think of that. Of course, not blocking Trank could be a big deal too. Looks like maybe Peter thinking about Ulex here, which would block Trank and navigate, leave him vulnerable to staving, but that's okay. You can't deal with everything. And
Ulex looks pretty good. That's actually a pretty solid option that didn't notice. That's probably going to lead to a simple win in this particular instance.
yeah,
But 2 minutes left for Peter. He's got to make a decision. He can't feel great about the position, like we said. He's come up with an interesting option. Oh, wow. Setting up the XEN. That is awesome.
great
What a
idea.
cool play. What an
That
amazing play.
is a phenomenal idea. It is still it's not emptying the bag, and this will allow Lewis to fish the cue off, and he's gonna draw navigate, which Peter is under some pressure here. If he just cashes in his X setup here, not realizing, but I'm sure he will. I'm sure he's already identified navigate as one of the threats, which would have been the major reason to play Ulex in the first place. They'll likely be able to figure that out, but this is getting very interesting, Josh.
Wow, I think Lewis is going to come to the conclusion that he has to fend off the X threat. This looks like a setup. I think he's going to figure out that this is a setup, but he has to fend it off by threatening a bingo. So I think you don't block the setup. Maybe you think about playing heaving, but then you realize this is not going to work out for me in the end game, having to play the Q next turn at a 20-point deficit. But I mean, it looks pretty good on the surface to play heaving, but I think he's going to conclude that it won't be enough and has to play QIN and hope for the bingo. And then Peter, and having to block the bingo, now Lewis is going to be able to block the X setup and play heaving next turn and threaten to go out. This is crazy stuff. I think if I had to think about it and make a decision, despite QIN going up 2 points, I think the Peter still will be able to win this game, but he only has 2 minutes to find an out in two. That doesn't give back a bingo, and I guess you just have to block navigate.
Yeah. I think something that, from our perspective, that we should realize that might predispose Lewis to just playing off his cue is that there's way more than just the actual A that's in the bag to hope for here. Again, he can still hope for the E, which would be an auto win with the 2 spots, but also drawing the A is good and drawing the S is good with staving. So there are many things that he can draw after just playing his cue, but he is considering heaving to address that X spot. It does feel logical from that perspective. But I agree with you, Josh. The best way to fight fire is with fire here. Try to get a bingo that dissuades Peter from being able to use the X spot and then try to figure out a way through this end game without the Q on your rack.
Nice. There it
Nice work.
goes. Heaving never wins. QIN winning with the E at the very least, because vintage and negative or agentive will be unblockable. And now Peter has a minute and a half to figure this out. He really needs to realize that he has to block navigate. It looks like he's already figured it out. Play Luz and threaten hexanes, which is amazing. And that wouldn't block navigate.
Oh
Hold
my
on.
God. Oh my
You
God.
have to play.
Still
You
fitting.
can't even play Ulex. Ulex doesn't block navigate either. 1 minute to figure this out. Oh my goodness. This is crazy. Saz. Okay, Saz blocks and threatens the X play. Will it be enough? He's got a minute to figure this out. 24 points will put him 22 in the lead. Heaving coming down for 30, 32. They'll be down 10 points. Keeping this rack. Is that enough?
The time pressure, such a factor here too. You can't go over time. These end games are going to be so close that I don't think you can afford to take that penalty. Nice work. This is theoretically a winning play, but it's going to require very precise follow-ups with not a lot of time left on the clock. No navigate for Lewis, but heaving will block the big X spot.
Wow. So with perfect play, heaving will lose the game by 7, but Peter has to still navigate this position and find one of his winning plays after heaving. This is a must play for Lewis, and I'm not sure exactly what he's thinking of here. Navigate's been blocked. He has to block the X, and time is of the essence. I think his biggest hope is that Peter doesn't figure things out, but heaving, unfortunately, is going to give back XU. I guess that's what he's thinking about. Is there any other way here to not get hit by an X and block hex?
Yeah, that XU is so easily detectable. I think that's the major problem with this. So is there some other way forward that makes things a little bit tough? The other thing is that Peter has Lux right here, which should be pretty findable and score decently well on top of the S of Saz. It's going to be really tough for Lewis to force Peter into finding a tricky move here, given that his options allow the simple X play here, and it's hard to address Lux on top of the S, which is very findable, even under pressure for Peter. Let's see what he comes up with. I think his own clock getting low, using as much time as possible, trying to come up with that creative sequence, Josh.
Yeah, it's you have to do it. Unfortunately, 30 seconds left for Lewis. I think he knows this isn't good enough. So long as Peter is able to just flap back with the X, 30 seconds for Peter. He cannot afford to go overtime, and that's coming down instantly. He is a strong blitz player. XU, one of the two only wins here. Wow, what a game to start the day off. Peter going to take this one by 7 at the very least.
Incredible. Lewis needs way more points than he can get here after that X play. Plays Tar, also his optimal outplay, and it is going to be a 7-point thrilling victory for Peter Andronowski. Maybe could this be his smallest winning margin of the tournament, given his enormous spread tiebreaker? But it is the most important so far.
Wow. Yeah. Such an important win for Peter, already being up a game on Lewis. It's going to be hard to catch him now. He's almost running away with it. 5 rounds to go, though. Anything can happen. What a thrilling game, Will.
Great one to start. Absolutely amazing one to start this final day. And Peter Andronowski doing what he has to do here in this pivotal game to hold his nerve and come away with that win against a furious charge by Lewis Mackay at the end. That is really a fantastic game. So not sure. I think we're trying to speed things along. Of course, we've already talked to Peter Andronowski a couple of times on the stream. He's definitely willing to chat. Even maybe he'll want to go cool off after this one, but we're gonna see. I think it's possible we may speed away to our next game, which is going to be Sam Crispin versus Harshan Lamabadu Surya. Another absolute banger, as you can see. Those two in 4th and 5th place right now. It looks like Sam lost his first game of the day, and possibly
Did you lose to Sammy?
looks like, yeah, it looks like also Harshan may have lost. Let me just check on that as well. But both players still with very legitimate chances here, and that's going to be a good one to watch. Let me just see what we can learn.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the games have been starting on the hour, but hot pairings are going to begin, I think, at least next round. We already have the pairing for this round, but because things are going to be so tense and so important to determine what just happened in the previous round, we're not going to have quick pairings for the next 4 rounds after this one. And so I think for the moment we're going to try and run things along, but we'll get word from our people on the floor as to what we should do here. Oh my goodness, what a crazy game. And if we were to talk to Peter, I mean, every single turn was interesting this game pretty much. So we would be on for a while. I guess the one thing about this game was the miss of receival earlier on relative. That could have been really devastating for a 13-point or 12-point sacrifice, but it ended up working fine. But other than that, man, what a well-played game. Lewis fighting so hard, almost coming away with it, despite a terrible post-bingo draw late in the game.
So Peter is going to talk to us, in fact, I have to get the standby.
Hello.
I'm going to fix this, everybody.
Hello, Peter.
Hey, Peter.
We don't see you on the stream, but we can hear you.
We will in a sec. We will in a sec.
Oh my
okay.
goodness. What a crazy game. What do you have to say?
Well, I am still trying to catch my breath. Just thinking about all the possibilities at the end there, you know, I concluded that that Lewis must have the cue for me to be able to win this, even though that it seemed quite favorable with me having the X. But then, you know, quite obviously he had navigate as a possibility from my point of view. You know, so I needed to block that, and then you know, and avoid the temptation of hex or hexanes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's the
uh,
key, is that you have this massive 60-point play available, but it loses you the game because you get hit by that out bingo to the E. Very impressive by you to hold your nerve with less than a minute on your clock and find one of the very few winning endgame sequences that you had. Absolute thriller. You just remember to breathe would be my advice to you. Take a
yeah,
deep breath
yeah,
because we're still we that's advice we need to follow as well.
yeah. Cheers. I almost missed Iridises. That was you know, I was just so disappointed to draw another eye when I fished off bug. Did I miss anything with when I had bug?
No bingos. No
No
You had
bingos.
bingos.
digit to the T was probably the most sound, just to get
All
rid of
right. Yeah.
those eyes and block. But no, you didn't have a bingo there. Is there anything you regret about this game, and is there anything you think was maybe a really important decision that you made?
Well,
Because
the
there were
first
so many of
decision,
them.
you know, the first rack I had was RATE triple O, and I've had that
Mhm.
rack before, yeah, yesterday, and I changed three O's last time, and it didn't work. So I just had this sort of flashback of, you know, do I play Ratu, but only for like 12 or 18 points or whatever it was, but then opening up, you know, a good spot for him on the triple letter. I was like, well, no, I'm going to change this time. And then, you know, to pick up WWL, like, what is the probability of that? And
True.
then what do I do? Do I just change three again? That was a very sensible thing to do. Do I play Wah, Rowell? I was like, well, no,
So,
I'm not going to score zero again. I was like, well, that
yes.
that was my decision.
So Lewis had rotundas through the N of pant, so it was very timely for you to play Wah instead of exchange
Okay.
there. It definitely kept you on the right foot there. But as far as I'm concerned, the play of EN, absolutely brilliant way to respond to some of the threats that Lewis may have. We were absolutely in awe of that play. Talk to us about card. That confused us for a second, but the chat
Oh, did it?
yeah, we figured it out thanks to our chat of what you
What?
might have been thinking there.
Why did it confuse you?
Well, we just didn't see the possibility of Xenon that you could draw off of the E of Remanet there, which if you keep the two ends on the rack,
Oh,
you are hitting an 100-point play there.
I didn't
Otherwise,
have I didn't have the X at that point.
right, but you kept ENON. So if you're drawing into the
I mean,
X, you've got that massive play.
to be honest, that I didn't even think of that. I was just like, well, I must block that spot, and for some reason, I doubted myself on Karn. Is that a
Okay.
word?
Yeah, there we go. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's
I was like, well,
also
screw it, just take it, and you know, I'm fully aware that time is ticking, and yeah, wow.
nice. Well, obviously playing in that spot makes sense. So in any case, Josh, anything else for Peter before we let him collect his wits after that amazing game?
Did you know? I mean, when you played SAS, you had almost no time left. How confident were you that that was a winning play?
Well, from my point of view, it was navigate was his only bingo that could play.
Mhm.
So you know, I saw that Luz loses the game because navigate still fits.
Yeah, under
And
pressure
and and
too.
besides, keeping the U was actually helpful because I foresaw that he's going to play heaving, so I need the XU there because
Nice.
Lux isn't good enough, I think, or yeah, probably no, it's not. Lux isn't good enough. I didn't do
L-
all that math, but I just instinctively knew Lux wasn't enough.
I think Lux would have maybe won by 1 point or something
Yeah,
crazy like that. But
yeah,
yeah, that's awesome. So you foresaw all of that with such little time. You kept your composure and you got an extremely important win. I think you're
yeah.
now 2 games up on the
Sweet,
entire field. So
sweet.
congrats to you. We'll be seeing you again for sure. You get a respite from the stream for next round, but that might be it. That might be it,
Sure,
man.
sure. I was gonna say something. I guess it's all the years of playing Blitz. You know, that's I think what helps me at the end there. You know, I think for like 3 years I played like 1 minute games. thousands of 1-minute games. So
So in your element down the stretch of the game. Well, fantastic win. That was a real thrill for all of us, and I'm sure yourself as well. Good luck in your next 5 rounds of the day. And as Josh said, we will be seeing you again, I'm sure. So
cheers. Thanks, guys. See you.
all right. Best of luck to Piotr Andronowski. And as he hands the headset back, that was a lot of fun to talk to him about that one, Josh. And just an amazing first round of the day.